You're listening to Parental Advisory in Reverse, a new podcast from a Gen X daughter caring for both her aging parents, finding her way, and sharing unique and inspiring stories with new and old friends. Because you just can't make this stuff up. Today's guest is my friend Tracy, who found herself unexpectedly living with her parents full time and caregiving around the clock with no breaks, no breathing room, and just a hard dose of reality for everyone involved. Tracy's relationship with her parents has always been filled with a combination of love and friction. So, like many of us, caregiving tested her in so many ways. After her father passed away unexpectedly, she and her siblings made the difficult decision to put her mother in a facility, all while navigating the emotional roller coaster that comes with shifting family roles. In this episode, we talk about what really happens when caregiving collides with real life and how you keep showing up when you're overwhelmed, and why the version of caregiving we imagine rarely matches with reality. Let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about the on ramp and then how that decision came about that you would stay with them.
So 10 years ago, I was living with my parents. As you know, I was staying there. Um, they got really upset with me for moving out at all when I got myself back on my feet, right? They said, Tracy, don't leave us. Why would you want to ever leave our home? We love it here, don't you? No, it's good for you. It's very lovely for you, but it's not for me. And, so I go out on my own and out on my own, and I have a house and life's good. And I lose my job, and that goes on a lot longer than it was supposed to, and as soon as I lost my job, my mom said, "Move in here." It's like, "Mom, the earth's not falling down around me. I have severance, I have a lot of options. I'm not destitute the second I lose my job." But she kinda wore me down. She just kept saying it, and the job never came, and it seemed to be the thing to do. Sell the house while I still get some money on it and go take care of my parents. Not really knowing what I was knowing, but not really knowing what I was getting into. Because yeah, living with my parents is one thing, taking care of them as they were, or as mom still is now, is an entirely different matter.
What kind of help did they need? What did they need you to do?
So since she was diagnosed with Parkinson's, dad had been doing everything for her, and I didn't really realize how much. It was like everything except for, she takes herself to the restroom and showers herself, and that's about it. He did everything else. And my sisters and I weren't terribly aware that that was like going on to that extent. Oh, first it was the medications, and then it's cook dinner every night. Now they expect dinner every night, not whatever I feel like cooking. They expect me to prepare a meal. And I didn't realize their taste buds had changed, and I made some of my father's favorite dishes, and he looked at them like he was his mother, like I just served him dog vomit or something. What they thought they needed was somebody to drive them around everywhere. What they thought they needed was to pretend all this wasn't real and everything was fine. Mom needed everything and somebody to yell at all times about everything because she wasn't happy.
How long ago did she stop driving?
So with the Parkinson's, finally, I got the keys away from her and she can't get them from me, was how I finally got the keys away from her. And I always got accused of, it's my car. It's my car. Okay, then I'll sell it and give you the money. No, no, don't do that. But it's my car, just so you know. All this horrible childhood stuff coming at me when she says something like that. My sisters deal with it much better than I do.
Like when I'm with her, I get reminded at least once a day, maybe more, depending on who we're talking to, that I'm the reason that she's not driving, that I'm the one that took away her driving privileges. And even my dad wants her to have her driving privileges back, much in the reverse way. She was taking care of him and doing everything for him. And um, now she can't. He's still driving every now and then. Nobody really thinks he should except for him.
And it would bother me too if I lost that kind of mobility and my autonomy. So, I mean, it's the thought of it bothers me too, but they kept blaming exactly me. I was the bad guy. I was the bad guy in all situations, though. If no was out there in the world, I got yelled at if I explained the reason why that's like that. It could be from why the TV is now streaming, and that's just how it is. And they don't like it, and they want cable, and they want to change channels. And I'm like, I can't help you. And they would get angry, and I can't defend it either. I didn't invent it.
I know exactly what you mean.
Um, Medications, those have been fun to try to keep track of and keep up with. I don't have a degree in this. I have no medical training, and it's like, okay, mom's got probably 14 pills she takes a day. Now, some of these are the same medication, and they've switched up in just since the time I had been in charge of them. And dad's were constantly changing because he kept having issues that last year before he died.
Yeah, the
Uh,
medication for the issue, the medication for the side effects of the issue, and then it changes. And
mhm,
then we had one that was to be tapered off. And so you had to take it for 5 days. And then for 5 days, you had to take half.
mhm.
Well, I wasn't going to be there to refill the container when there were 3 half pills left. And I was like, how am I going to give instructions for someone to do that? And I wasn't confident that my mother would remember. So with her, she has lung cancer that spread to her brain. So, like, some things she remembers very well. I was there this week and she said, "Oh, how did that laundry basket work in your bathroom?" And I couldn't believe that she remembered we bought it. And then, won't be able to remember the conversation that she had with the guy yesterday that cuts the grass.
Yeah, that gets hard. Mom's memory's gotten worse and worse. It's like Carrie will probably pick her up tonight, but when I call her tomorrow, if I ask her, she won't remember.
Moving in to care for them, you are correct, is different than living with them, right? If you have a
Mhm.
temporary living situation, that's one thing. But having to like move in and do everything, I get the cooking. I'm not a cook, but my dad's one of the symptoms is that his taste buds will change. He'll lose his appetite, right? Something will sound good. By the time you cook it or go get it, 10 minutes later, he doesn't want it anymore. So that part does get very frustrating in addition to like the calendar and the medication.
Mhm. It's it's a lot. It's a lot of responsibility I did not ask for. Did you ever say, I'd love to do that one day?
What do you think the younger Tracy would have thought of you living with them and taking care of them and being in charge?
I thought I was gonna do it. I think I had planned on younger Tracy. Now, when she got to be about 40-year-old Tracy, she was like, "Nah, nobody's gonna hold me to that." But they didn't.
That's really interesting that you always knew you would. And then when you decided you didn't want to, that's when it was time.
And it's like, "Well, of course you're gonna take care of me. I don't have to do that, mom." And I said that for several years. I'm not planning on that. You guys will be fine. And I throw that, you're never gonna need that. Because I'd hoped so.
Denial and the like hoping that it'll be different is real. So you moved in there, like the job thing put you there, but you have two siblings. How did it end up being you with most of the responsibility?
Well, when I asked, mom said, "Of course it was you. You don't have a husband. What else are you gonna do?" I responded well to that, as you might imagine. Um, yeah. Um, that's so funny. Oh, man, I blew up when she said that. Um, Here's what it comes down to. When I was 7 years old, I told my mom that I was gonna take care of her for the rest of my life, and honestly, my whole family's always known that, and they held me to it. My mom held me to it, and my sisters made it a joke, but yeah, if you run into my oldest sister sometime here and there, which you may, yeah, you can ask her how long that's been in play. So, but mom's always had it in her head that that was how it's gonna be. But they also thought they would die together too. They always said, "Well, when we are gone." They never planned that one of them would be left, or if they did, they really planned for it to be dad since mom's was diagnosed with Parkinson's 17 years ago, something like that. So things did not go the way they thought they were gonna go, and they didn't plan for anything but what they thought would happen.
That brings two things to mind. I I too do not have the husband or the kids. My sister has two teenagers. We both own our own business, but hers requires more in person than mine. This isn't how we thought it would go either. So my sister and I always talked about how when my father passes away, because he's had cancer for 10 years, who's going to take care of mom? And that my sister would have to do it because she has the nephews. And I remember always feeling kind of bad that like she's going to have to live in a tiny house in your backyard, or she's going to live closer to you, or it was always going to be my sister's problem. Now, I don't know what kind of chance, but there's a chance that my mother could pass away before my dad. And that nobody saw that coming. Even when I try to have conversations with my dad about like financial stuff, the words out of his mouth were, well, everything goes to your mom and you all can figure it out. Well, now I have more questions because it might not actually work that way.
Yeah, and then there are legal matters, right? There's becoming power of attorney and taking care of their business, Social Security and SACOA, and get mom in a nursing home. And shoot, she's still on a waiting list for Medicaid, if that would ever happen now.
You decided to move her to a facility. Tell me a little bit about that decision because you do have siblings, but I know a lot of that was you.
It was me because I truly didn't realize how dependent she was on absolutely everything until dad died. And she wanted me to be respectful and do what she thought she was always in charge and to tell me what to do. But I didn't realize that I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't leave the house and leave my dog there anymore because dad wasn't there. She would trip over, she'd fall at any time. And then the whole thing is the pushback of, we don't need your help. I'm fine. Just leave me here alone. Just leave me here alone. I don't need anybody. Really, Mom? Because you can't feed yourself beyond cheese and crackers. It's such a wall to hit when you just don't know what to say to your parent anymore about, look, this is what's going to happen and that's it. And to draw a hard line in the sand with my parents.
I haven't really had to put a limit on anything and kind of put that boundary and make that decision, but I know it's coming. I think of you and your situation and that that's kind of an impending thing that's going to happen.
The responsibility of the money, right? It's such a responsibility. And that's one of the reasons why when I left town, and so my sisters have stepped up, and Patty's there. She lives closer. She does the laundry. She's there a couple times a week. Carrie's there at least once a week, takes her out, and Carrie manages her money. Now, the three of us all still talk about things and make any decisions together, but between being 100% responsible for mom's every emotional and physical need and all of her finances, that is too much responsibility.
My sister and I actually agree on everything. I'm curious if, did your sisters give you any pushback when you were like, I think a facility is safer and makes more sense?
No, no. In fact, they always the opposite. It's always, Tracy, we'll back whatever you say. Oh, no pressure. But and they did, and they have had my back.
That's really great.
But it was still, well, whatever you want. There's three of us. Everybody put something in a hat anonymously. That's the great thing about three siblings, right? We've always got a majority vote. But yeah, we do some three-way calls and we stay in touch. And at least once a week, we're all talking to each other and everything. And it's hard to talk to mom because she has such trouble using any kind of phone anymore. She can't push buttons. She doesn't know what they're for anymore. I've tried a bunch of different phones and it's been a thing. I make sure that one of my sisters is there so I know I can get through at least on their phones and talk to her.
Yeah, I acknowledged that this week that it's really hard to have a conversation with my mom. She either can't hear you, and I don't know if she needs hearing aids or if like brain cancer is impacting her ability to hear. When you say something to her, you kind of have to be looking right at her and give her a minute to catch on. You can't change topics in the middle of a sentence. You need to make sure she's not thinking about something else or not paying attention. And then, sometimes I've said something to her and you can tell she doesn't understand. So I kind of have to like explain my question. And then sometimes she responds and sometimes she doesn't. And so there's no dialogue, which is kind of sad in a way. And then other times I can carry on a conversation with her just fine. So you never really know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I had a lot more of that with dad towards the end. I never know who I was going to get. Some conversations were interesting. Carrie had a lot more fun with that. Carrie got a lot of old stories. And again, everybody's relationship's different, right? Their relationship with all three of their daughters is different. So,
Yes.
and the thing is being the most available to be able to go help, that's never bothered me. That's never bothered me. It only got to me this time because I never got a break from it. That was home. I didn't get to leave their house and go home and breathe. I didn't get to go to the office for 8, 10 hours a day and breathe. Right? It was constant.
That's a really great point as a caregiver who's living with them and working from home.
Yeah. And whenever I tried to get respite care, mom would lose her mind. And everybody's like, well, I can't give you a whole weekend to go be with mom. I'm like, really? Because 2 days is not enough time. In fact, when I made the decision of, yeah, I can't keep doing this with mom, it was outside of CVS. She couldn't step down off the curb. And getting her into the she didn't even need to go. I could have done
Yeah.
it, but she insisted. It's just down the block, it's just at the corner, and it was a nightmare, and she couldn't step down off the curb, and I can't physically carry my mother. I'm waiting for her to fall, it's freezing cold, and I realize, everybody's getting a disservice here. I'm not quite sure who this situation's helping. And to see that confused look on their face, it's, no matter how messed up my relationship with my parents has been, throughout my life, they're still my mom and dad. I still want a memory of them in their prime, right? When they thought they knew all the answers. I probably didn't agree with them, but they were confident. And that's just hard to see them lose that. I did learn to quit, and I learned it pretty early on, was the word no would come out of my mouth first, or the negative of whatever they wanted that wasn't going to happen. I had to quit responding the way I was responding. With no, we can't do that. I've I learned. Okay, what do we wanna do? Okay, and we talk about it, and I would do anything, but I wouldn't just immediately shut it down. But I had to slow down and be a little more considerate. I didn't think I was being inconsiderate, but in a way it really was. I made them cash in airline tickets. They thought they were gonna take themselves to Cheyenne.
They were trying to buy airline tickets?
They did. We got them refunded because called back and say, "Look, she can't travel, she has Parkinson's." Because normally you can't just get a refund from an airline. You are not. Oh, well, it's done and spent, so we're going. Well, you guys can't get from here to there by yourself. I don't think you can get through the airport.
Wow, so you had to tell them no, they couldn't fly to
I did
Cheyenne.
make my sisters come along. I wouldn't do that alone. They both had to sit there with me because my father especially had some anger issues there towards the
Yes.
end, and I was the only person available to take that out on. Yeah, I wasn't saying that without them there, and I was gonna hide behind both those 2 girls. I'll say it, but you guys gotta stand in front of me.
I don't mind paying the bills. I don't mind, doing some stuff around the house. Like there were a bunch of light bulbs burnt out and something needed to happen outside and I got a new doorbell. Like I don't mind all the kind of administrative stuff. I do not want to be parenting anybody and telling them no, they can't do something that they've done for 75 years.
Exactly, and it's hard, it's heartbreaking. Wish I could say yes more often. I wish it wasn't a question, right? I wish there was
I
no
know.
question.
What is something you think other people should know? Either someone like me who's just getting into this or like someone maybe who's their parents aren't quite there yet, but it's coming down the path. What advice would you give?
Be patient with yourself more than anything else, and for me, I had to find joy in the moments that I had peaceful to myself, a lot of meditation. Definitely a lot of meditation, but find peace and joy and notice it whenever I'm around it, right? If I had a break to be with all my friends, then I'm going to relax and I'm going to be with all my friends or at my son's house. Even there in my moments of meditation, when I have to leave the room, I could just have this blessing of I practiced enough that when I really needed it, I'm able to get quiet. When I learn to accept that that's going to come in moments, that's going to come in moments here and there. So appreciate them, right?
Yeah, I think we have to really be present in the other parts of our life, right? Because that moment when you're with them is just like the rest of the world kind of stops and they get all your attention.
And it had taken over my whole life, and I had let it, and I had to learn to set boundaries. I'm trying to care for people that I need to set boundaries with, and they don't teach a class. If somebody's lucky, they've seen it modeled for them by their older family members. If they've seen it, have a plan, sort of something to follow. That's not been that way in my family, not at all.
Is there anything else you would like to add that we haven't talked about?
Dad died, and I still haven't processed any grieving on that. Because you saw me going through all that and what that was a big deal, and then mom 100%, and so I try to, give myself a little grace and know that one day this is gonna hit me, and, it probably won't be until after mom passes, but, in the end, the best I can do for her, whether I'm in Indianapolis or Minnesota, is pray for her, Give her a call, talk to her, and pray for her.
My sister and I have had the conversation that like there's a chance that we would have to have their services pretty close to each other. I can see myself being very similar to you. Like one passes away, but the other one is going to demand so much of your time that like you won't really get a chance to grieve in the moment.
Yeah. I imagine it'll hit me once they're both gone.
Do you think part of that too is the complicated emotional part of just like having an interesting relationship with them like throughout your life and as an adult, and then you're in this like intimate caregiving role and being all in with your parents all the time and processing grief from a place where you're like, I didn't have that close of a relationship with them before they got sick and before I was their caregiver, and now it just kind of hits you all at once.
Exactly. That's a good description of it, really. My relationship with my parents has always been a love-hate relationship. It just has been. I wish that weren't true, but it is. I just love them to pieces. I hate that their lives are ending like this.
Tracy's father's service was beautiful, a real reflection of the man that he was, and he was adored by his community. It was so apparent by all of the stories and the people who showed up for him. Speaking of dads, while organizing my dad's office, I found this. You've been listening to Parental Advisory in Reverse. Real stories about Gen X adults taking care of the people who raised us. I'm not really if you are in the thick of caregiving or just curious about what it looks like, you are in good company here. Follow the show wherever you listen and pass it along to someone who could use a little community right now. Because caring for them starts with caring for yourself. Isn't always on the front page. Sometimes he's a regular guy. A guy who works hard to make life good for his family. That's my dad. Join me for the next episode where we sit down with Abby. And she shares one of her favorite memories of her father and her siblings eating fair food around his hospice hospital bed. Right in the middle of all the sadness, it's tender, unexpected, and a little bit of a love story. You might need to grab a Kleenex for this one. See you then.